you want me to use the mic? Testing. Good sound?
Yeah.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي رب زدني علما أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبد الله ورسوله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So like Uncle Assad mentioned, is it too loud or? Okay. Today we're going to talk about basically the recent events that's happened in Syria. Of course, to understand that what's happened recently over the last few weeks, you need to kind of go through the recent kind of historical events that have happened. The backstory to all of this is actually what's known today as the Arab Spring, which was a series of uprisings, revolutions, rebellions throughout the Arab and Muslim world. And in fact, it started at the end of 2010, where a man, a fruit seller, Mohammed Bouazizi, in Tunisia, he was a poor guy and he's trying to sell fruit and vegetables for his family. He comes from a poor background and, times are difficult. And the police, they came to him and they stopped him selling his fruit and veg. And they said, look, you need a permit to sell your fruit and veg here. And Mohammed Bouazizi, he says, look, the permit itself is basically more than, my weekly or monthly or whatever wage. I can't afford it. Anyway, so Mohammed Bouazizi, he goes to another street, another road to sell his fruit and vegetables there. And again, another group of officers, they say, look, you can't sell your fruit and veg here. You need a permit. And so the guy is saying, look, I'm trying to survive. I'm trying to make money for my family. And you're not even allowing me to survive. You're not even allowing me to work hard enough so that I can, give some kind of money back home. And so what he does is, he's had enough and he gets really frustrated and he's so angry and he's so vexed. He says, you know what, I'm going to stand in front of the presidential palace or the parliament building, I can't remember exactly where, and he drenches himself in gasoline and he puts himself on fire. Now, just think about it. What makes a man, what level of frustration, anger, what kind of feelings could a man be going through, really, to put yourself on fire outside of the government building? The people in Tunisia, they resonated with Mohammed Bouazizi. They said, you know what, that frustration, that level of zulm that he was facing, that level of oppression, tyranny, real iron-fistedness that he was feeling, we're feeling. We're feeling the same thing. And so what you ended up having was all of Tunisia basically began to protest and uprise. And very shortly after country, Libya, they saw Tunisia, they said, you know what, our Muslims just across the border there, we feel the same as the people of Tunisia. And the people of Egypt, they felt the same as the people of Libya. And eventually the people of Syria, they resonated with what's happening in Egypt and Libya and Tunisia, and they began to rise up. And they began to say, we've had enough of the regime. And the first actual event, the real spark in Syria, happened in the city of Daraa, which is in the south. And it happened, there was a 13-year-old boy, Hamza al-Khatib. 13-year-old boy, Hamza al-Khatib. And he was part of the anti-government or anti-regime protests. And there were certain slogans that he was saying that the people want the fall, or the people demand the fall of the regime. And so he was picked up, 13-year-old lad he was. He was picked up, and we have some youngsters in the audience, so I can't go into the details of what they did. But some of the things, you read it and you think, subhanAllah, man, this guy, this 13-year-old man, inshallah, he accepted it from amongst the shuhada that speak against the tyrant ruler. He was electrocuted. In fact, they electrocuted him to a point where his feet, his elbows, his face, they became burnt from the electrocution. They beat him, they whipped him. They actually whipped people with rubber tires. They smashed his jaw. They shot him. And they shot him through both of his arms, and the bullets actually passed into his belly. 13 years old. They castrated him, and then they left his body there. The parents have come and they're asking for the body. The parents of Hamza al-Khatib, they've come and they're just demanding the body back so that they can bury their 13-year-old boy. And some reports they say, go home and make new babies. And if you can't, we will send our police officers to assist you. The people of Daraa, they found out, and this is where the real spark of the protest they began. Deep zulm, deep oppression, deep tyranny, the level of tyranny that you face with these kind of regimes that is kind of difficult for us to really understand. These people weren't allowed to breathe, they weren't allowed to speak, they weren't allowed to breathe. And so what ended up happening is Daraa and then eventually the rest of Syria rose up in protest. It rose up in this kind of revolution to say that we demand the fall of this regime. We've had enough. We've had enough of your dad, Hafez al-Assad, and we've had enough of you. And we demand some real kind of change. And in the same way that any kind of tyrants wish to kind of hold onto their power, he began slaughtering the people. Bashar al-Assad, the Assad regime, they began firing on the people. They began literally physically crushing them with tanks and with these big vehicles, shooting at them live rounds. No, we're not talking about rubber bullets, we're not talking about tear gas, these were live rounds. Basically, we're going to instill the fear of Bashar al-Assad in you so that you dare ever even think about, speaking up against him. And what happened is actually, when the Assadist the Syrian army was deployed on the people, some of the junior officers within the army who were Sunni Muslims, they said, you know what, you're actually telling us to fire upon our own people. Remember, Syria is a majority Sunni Muslim ruled by this Assadist Alawi regime. And so you had a break within the army, and the Sunni Muslims began making and forming their own militant militias, really, to protect themselves. They set up their own militia groups to protect themselves, their families, their communities. And what ended up happening is that these Sunni resistance groups, we'll call them the resistance fighters, they actually had Assad on the back foot. They actually had Bashar al-Assad on the back foot, and they were close to completely toppling the regime. And then what happened is Bashar al-Assad, he got help from his allies, from Iran, from Hezbollah, it's a Lebanese Iranian proxy, and from Russia. And also at the same time you had Daesh, ISIS. They rose up, they began fighting against the Sunni resistance fighters. And so now you've got Assad, Iran, Russia, Daesh, you've got Turkey, UAE, and Saudi. Everybody's pulling different strings, and the resistance was effectively weakened, and the Sunni resistance fighters, they were pushed up north to a small city called Idlib. And effectively they'd been there now for a good few years, and they were funded to some extent by Turkey, for Turkey's own interest. We can get through that maybe in the Q&A. But effectively it remained this way for a few years, where the Sunni resistance fighters had now all been pushed back into one small city in Idlib. And the situation was kind of stalemate. Between Assad and his allies and the Sunni Turkish-backed resistance fighters. Now, as these resistance fighters were basically surviving in Idlib, you had some key events which occurred, which actually ended up leading to the fall of Bashar just a week or two ago. Firstly was the Russian invasion of Ukraine. This was back in 2022. The Russian offensive in Ukraine, it meant that Russia is now bogged down in a conflict right close to its border. And as the Ukraine war, the war in Ukraine, it prolonged, it went longer. It's been like almost 3 years now. Russian assets, Russian military equipment, Russian soldiers, Russian intelligence, it had to be diverted away from Syria to Ukraine because Russia was not able to keep up with all of this at the same time. It had other conflicts going on as well in Libya, in Armenia, Azerbaijan. So Russia decided that it's time to take away some of its capability from Syria and to focus more on Ukraine. At the same time, especially over this last year, you've had certain attacks or certain kind of skirmishes between Iran and Israel, the occupying entity known as Israel. And Israel kind of attacks on Hezbollah, on the chain of command, on trying to target certain key generals and this kind of stuff of Iran. It weakened Iran as well. And so the two main allies of Bashar al-Assad, which was Russia and Iran, they've now become weakened to some kind of point where now they're not really able to confine the resistance fighters just in Idlib. And so in an effort to bring Bashar al-Assad to the negotiation table, in an effort to bring him to some kind of peace process with the regime and with the resistance fighters, it was actually Turkey, Erdogan, who, by the way, anybody who thinks that the Turkish kind of backing and funding of the resistance fighters is because of his love for Islam and his sincerity and this kind of stuff, like, think again. This guy's an open munafiq, actually. He's an open munafiq. I mean, if all it took was, some extra supplies and funding of the resistance fighters to basically end this once and for all, why didn't you do that, like, years ago? Why has it taken 13, 14 years, the butchering of Muslims left, right, center, for you to even do anything? Turkey got its own interest in the region. It's got its migrant crisis, it's got its war or its fight against the Kurds. So it had its own kind of interest at play here. Nevertheless, the green light was given for the offensive to be carried out on Aleppo. And so the resistance fighters, they took Aleppo very quickly, actually. We saw the videos that were coming out and this kind of stuff. And as soon as they took Aleppo, they had control of the M5 highway, which basically connects Aleppo to Hama, to Homs, to Damascus. And that is actually the order that the resistance fighters took back these cities. Aleppo fell, Hama fell, Homs, and then Damascus. And that was effectively the end of the regime. At the end of all this, we saw videos of celebrations. For those of you that have been keeping up with social media, Twitter, Instagram, even on WhatsApp, people doing like sujood of shukr in Khalid bin Walid Masjid, in Damascus. Imagine Khalid bin Walid radiallahu anhu actually buried in Damascus, which has been under the control of the Assadist, the Assad Alawite regime for since the time of his dad. We had videos coming out. I just watched yesterday. Hafiz al-Assad, the father, his tomb was set on fire. I saw videos of this coming out yesterday. You had people praying in the Umayyad Masjid. You had some real horror stories coming out of these prisons, these torture chambers, Sednaya prison. We know that one kind of comment from the sister. She said that the regime, they captured me, they imprisoned me when I was 19. She's 32 years old right now. 13 years she's been in prison. She's saying they captured me when I was 19, and she had with her a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old child. They were all born in the prison, and she's saying, I'm their mother. I don't know who their fathers are. There's some real horror stories coming out. From these prisons. We know that one man, he was sent a picture from one of his friends who said, this guy looks like you. And the man who received the picture, he said, that's my brother. That's my brother that I haven't seen. I think he's had 30 or 40 years I've been looking for him. Hafiz al-Assad abducted him. I didn't even know he was alive. Yeah, he went in when he was 18. He came out in his 50s. Imagine that. You had people who are running out of prison in like a frenzy, and they're saying, "What's happened? What's happened? It's been 10 years I've been in jail. What's happened?" Bashar al-Assad has fell, and they began crying and making sujood and thanking Allah. Some didn't even know Hafiz al-Assad was dead. The dad, he died back in 2000, I think it was, didn't even know he was dead. They said, "Oh, has Hafiz al-Assad finally been overthrown?" And people are like, "Whoa, you've been in prison for so long." He died 24 years ago. I saw a video yesterday of a man, first time he's seen a mobile phone. I don't know if you guys have seen it. First time he's seen a mobile phone. It's like time travel. Imagine you go into jail when you're like in your teens, back in the 80s or whatever it is, and you come out and 2024, almost 2025. He didn't know what a phone was. Crazy videos coming out. Wallahi, it's kind of mad. And so all of this has happened. Today I was watching the first Jummah since the Syria was taken over by the resistance fighters. Huge celebration in Damascus and Aleppo and Daraa. So the main thing now is, look, like, what happened next? This is $1 million question on everybody's mind. What happened next? Where do we go from here? Is it time for a khilafah? Do we get another civil war? Is Syria going to be split into different kind of countries, the region? Is Israel going to take over? Is the US going to invade? What's going to happen? And really, without going into detail about any of these things, maybe we can leave it for the Q&A. I think it's important that we, first of all, understand the entire situation from the correct perspective. I think the perspective on this will actually help us understand future events to come. First and foremost, if the aim of the entire revolution, the entire battle, was to free the prisoners, then alhamdulillah, the aim's been met. Yeah. If the aim of the entire revolution was to bring about the fall of Bashar al-Assad and his regime, then alhamdulillah, that's been met. The objective has been met. But if the aim was to create a real, true Islamic change, in every sense of the word, then we need to be honest that this has not yet been met. We need to be very honest about that. We need to be clear what we mean about change, what we mean about victory. Victory is not that one face replaces another. Victory is not that Syria, or this new Syria, becomes some kind of proxy of Turkey or the UAE or Saudi. Victory is not that we just get an additional nation state amongst the 50 or 60 we've already got. This is not victory. Victory is the establishment of the Islamic State. We need to be quite clear on that. It's the establishment of the Islamic Khilafah. It's a state, it's an independent state. It's got its own path to follow, its own ideology, its own vision for the world. It's a state that doesn't have any fixed borders. It seeks to expand, especially across the Muslim world. If we look at Syria now, that doesn't mean that, this is Syria, that's Jordan, and basically you are for yourselves and we are for us. The Islamic State doesn't have that mindset. It's got a message for mankind, it's got a vision to spread of Islam as a way of life around the entire globe. A state which seeks to end real oppression, occupation, assault, crime. And basically when true victory comes, actually the world is going to be shaken up by this new player on the block. And the world will really know, the Muslim will know when victory comes, you're going to know it. What do I mean by that? When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when this victory, when this establishment of the state came at that time in Medina, the powers knew about it, the world knew about it. Yeah, there were smaller victories along the way, and these smaller victories along the way, this is not meant to put anybody down. Nobody is going to deny that when Bilal radiallahu anh, when he was being tortured, he's been tortured, he's being whipped, and Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, he came and he actually bought Bilal radiallahu anh from Umayyah bin Khalaf. Nobody will deny and say that wasn't a good thing, that wasn't a small victory or a small milestone. The famous line, I forgot the actual amount, Umayyah bin Khalaf, he said something along the lines of, give me 10 gold coins for him. And so Abu Bakr gave him 10. And then Umayyah bin Khalaf, he began to laugh. And he said, basically, I've scammed you. Yeah, I've got 10 gold coins for this black Abyssinian slave. If you offered me one gold coin, Abu Bakr, I would have accepted your offer. Abu Bakr, he turned around and said, by Allah, if you asked me for 100 gold coins, I would have given you 100 gold coins. Yeah. It's a victory, or it's a milestone on the steps of victory. Like when Hamza radiallahu anhu became Muslim, when Umar radiallahu anhu became Muslim, the Sahaba were doing takbirat. In fact, when Umar radiallahu anhu became Muslim, the Sahaba were doing such loud takbirat, it became a security issue for them. They had to flee. Yeah? They had to run out of the house, they had to disperse. So these things are welcomed. These things are good. Bashar al-Assad being removed is a good thing. The prisoners being released is a good thing. But the real victory, even during the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was when the people of Medina gave the nusrah, when they gave the military support, when they gave the political support, when they granted the Muslims of Medina a power base, where now they can grow out of. Now the Muslims have finally reached a position of authority, and then later on they reached a position of strength. And it was after the state was established in Medina, that's where we saw these great kind of achievements. That's where we saw Badr, that's where we saw conquest of Mecca, that's where we saw the defeat of the Persian, that's where we saw the Roman getting smashed, that's where we saw how poverty was eradicated later on in North Africa. That's how we saw, imagine, like, people are oppressed in Spain. People are oppressed in Spain by their king, and so they turn to the Umayyad Khilafah and ask the general Tariq bin Ziyad for help. Yeah? This is how the Muslims were viewed. This is how they were understood, that these people are liberators. These people are not oppressors. This is how Islam was brought for mankind, to release mankind, to liberate mankind from the many, many darknesses into the one true light of Islam. This is how Muslims were viewed as a global power. The Muslim civilization was a role model for mankind. People used to look up to the Muslim Ummah. This is what real victory looks like for the Muslim Ummah. And so the fall of Bashar al-Assad, it's a milestone. It's a historic event in the Ummah's route towards victory. But the story is not over yet. Yeah, we as an Ummah, we still have some way to go. And who knows this best? The regimes in the Muslim world, they understand this very well. And the US, they understand this very well. That the Muslim Ummah is still seeking change. The enemies of Islam, they understand this very, very well. They realize that the Muslim Ummah is still seeking some kind of change, some kind of complete victory. So what do? They'll throw obstacles in the way. They'll try to delay this victory. They'll try to, kill its carriers of this call. They'll try to torture them, try to imprison them. We saw exactly what Quraysh did to the Muslims, to the Sahaba, radiallahu anhum, is what the regimes of the Muslim world today are trying to do to the people that call for any kind of real change. But this only adds fuel to the fire, actually. It only adds fuel to the fire. It only makes situations worse. It only brings about certain kind of opportunities where this call actually grows. Yeah, I was reading just a few days ago, Egypt, just as soon after Bashar al-Assad's regime fell, Egypt was in a state of high alert, undeclared state of high alert. Why? Why is Sisi panicking? Because he realizes the hatred that the Muslims of Syria had for Bashar al-Assad, and the oppression and the tyranny that they felt from Bashar al-Assad, his own people feel from him. And he enacts that tyranny on them. Look what happened in Jordan. Jordan was on high alert to a point where Joe Biden, he actually had a call with King Abdullah. And he said to him, in the letter, it said, the president emphasized, Joe Biden emphasized, the support of the US for the stability of Jordan, and Jordan's central role in maintaining stability and de-escalating tensions throughout the Middle East. Yeah, Jordan panicking now. Jordan wanted a guarantee from the US to say, look, we're here for you. We're going to support you. We're going to make sure that you're, what do they say here? Maintaining stability. Maintaining stability basically means we're going to make sure that you keep your iron fist over the people of Jordan. We're going to help you in that. And we're going to fund you in that. And we're going to help you, with our intelligence and, our military capability and this kind of stuff. Don't worry, we've got your back. Maintaining stability means maintaining that iron grip over the people. Bashar al-Assad was the most brutal, arguably. The most brutal in squashing the these different revolutions that happened across the Muslim world, but he fell. And if he fell, if the most brutal can fall, if the most evil can fall, then anybody can fall. The rest of them can fall. That's why the people of the Muslim Ummah, they were celebrating. If you guys, anyone that saw the videos coming out of Palestine, coming out of Egypt, coming out of Turkey, the Blue Mosque, people were celebrating because everybody resonated with the fact that this Ummah is not going to sleep until she removes her oppressors and her tyrants. This Ummah is moving towards an inevitable victory, inshallah. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam promises this. That, again, we know the hadith just to remind ourselves. Our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned there will be prophethood for as long as Allah wills it to be. Then He will remove it when He wills. Then there will be khilafah on the prophetic method, and it will be for as long as Allah wills. Then He will remove it when He wills. Then there will be biting rule, mulkan adha, for as long as Allah wills. Then He will remove it when He wills. Then there will be oppressive rule, mulkan jabriyatan, for as long as Allah wills. Then He will remove it when He wills. And then there will be khilafah upon the prophetic method. And then He sallallahu alaihi wasallam remains silent. There's no doubt today that the era that we are living in is mulkan jabriyatan. It is the oppressive rule, the tyrannical rule. This period of oppression can only last so long. Like, think about it, right? There comes to a point where people weigh up the consequences between living under oppression, like real oppression, or trying to remove this oppression. That's the choice that some people are left between. And in most cases, people would rather live under oppression to save themselves from the torture and the killing and the bombing if they dare to even try speak out against this oppression. But there comes a point in time where people feel as though, you know what, the torture and the killing and the horror stories that we hear, as gruesome as they may be, it's actually a sacrifice they're willing to make. It's actually a sacrifice worth being paid because they want to establish the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they want to get rid of this oppression once and for all. They really want to create some kind of change. The people of Syria, they knew that. They knew what Bashar al-Assad was like. Egypt knew what Mubarak was like. These people knew that these regime that they had over them were tyrants. Why did they decide to get up and remove them? Because they realized that actually our lives that we're living right now is actually less. It's actually more painful to continue living in the way that we're living than to rise up and face the consequences. So this victory is going to come, inshallah. With me and you, or without me and you, it's coming. The real question is, and this is the most important thing perhaps we can take from this talk, how much of this opportunity are we going to take? How much of this real golden opportunity that Allah has given in front of us, how much of that are we actually going to take? Like, it's a Christmas season, and I'm not, condoning that, I'm not promoting that. It's a Christmas season. In a couple of weeks, there are going to be Boxing Day sales. There are going to be Black Friday sales, whatever names they've got, yeah? The average person in the UK, just on average, they're going to look at Black Friday sales, the Christmas sales, Boxing Day sales, and they're going to think, you know what, this is an opportunity for a good deal. I've got a bloody fridge half price and a washing machine and clothes and PlayStations, phones, or whatever it is. If I don't buy something in Black Friday, like, I've missed out. That's kind of how people feel. If I don't get a deal on Boxing Day sales or whatever it is, I've missed out. I've missed that opportunity. Yeah, I'm feeling like depressed for the next whole, few weeks. I should have got should have made the most of it, kind of thing. Again, obviously, when I was looking at the videos coming out, I watched some videos of Muslims making sujood and thanking Allah in the citadel in Aleppo, and especially when they were walking into Masjid Khalid bin Walid. And when they're walking into Masjid Khalid bin Walid and making sujood and shukr, I'm talking about the average mujahid, the sincere soldier, the sincere people of Syria. When they're making sujood and when they're thanking Allah and they've liberated, how ironic, they've liberated the tomb of Khalid bin Walid radiallahu anh. You just can't but help to think, have I missed out? I wish I had a bit of a part to play in terms of liberating these areas. I wish I had a bit of a part to play in terms of, liberating or taking over the masjid of Khalid bin Walid radiallahu anhu. Such a historic moment, such an iconic moment. Have I missed out on the reward? It's something that, maybe some of us were thinking about. Today we do have an opportunity for reward. We have another opportunity to be part of a historic moment, not just in the history of the Muslim Ummah. Wallahi, this is the period that the Ummah is going through now, over the last 10, 20 years, up until now, up until the future. This is a period in the Ummah's history that is not only historic for the Ummah, it's actually historic for the world. This is like we're on the verge of a global historical event. And so because that true change and that true victory hasn't come yet, that means that we still have a part to play. That means there's still an opportunity out there, and that means, inshallah, we still have potential to get in on that reward, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the ability to do that and to take as much of that as we can. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله ولكم لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين جزاك الله خير.
Inshallah, we'll have an opportunity.